everybody. Welcome to Live Interactive English. I am Shane.
And I'm Karen. Today we're looking at part 2 of opening up your creativity. And like we said before, we're not really creating art here, right?
Right, not that type of creativity, but like creating documents and creating things on the internet using software.
Exactly. But you know, I have to say that I really admire you because I think you're pretty tech savvy. I mean, you're good with computers and I need your help.
Oh.
You know, I'm trying to download this open source, you know, from Microsoft, the Word documents. I don't want to pay a lot, but I want to download something that I can use for free.
Right.
But I don't know which one to use because all of them says free.
Right.
There are like a lot of websites that I can go to.
So you just did a Google search for Microsoft Office free alternatives.
Exactly.
Yeah. The problem with doing that, right, is that you need to do a little bit more research. So if you see a name of a software, then you can also Google that software and see what, you know, other netizens are saying about it. You know, that's one great thing about the internet is people give reviews and people give ratings. So you need to just kind of look into it and see which one people say good things about. Or people are talking about basically this is the kind of thing that you need to do and this software will do that. Because if you just randomly download things off, like a program especially, off the internet, and you run it, there really could be a virus in there.
And oh no, and that's gonna mess up my computer, right?
You haven't downloaded anything yet.
Well, not yet.
Have you?
I was about to, but
good.
Can you help me? Because it sounds like a lot of work to do the research.
Okay.
So can you please help me?
Why don't I do that right now, and then we'll be right back with you for part 2.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Shane.
All right.
Okay, make sure it's free, and then free of virus.
Okay.
There is good reason why many individual users and companies value open source software and even prefer it to proprietary software. For one thing, it's free. For another, it's much more flexible and secure. Any user with coding experience is able to examine the code for errors, and if they spot any, fix them immediately. However, this is not to say that open source software doesn't have its own problems. Open source software often lacks the kind of smooth user interfaces that proprietary software often provides. This can make it difficult for some to engage with the software's content. What's more, a lot of hardware is not automatically compatible with open source software, and the user may have to pay the hardware manufacturer for special drivers to run their open source programs.
Okay, so part 2 of opening up your creativity. And you remember in part 1, we've been singing the praises of open source software.
That's right.
It's hard to say, open source software.
Because they are free, and sometimes I think they're really, really easy to use, right?
Well, it can be. That's might be one of the problems that we might get into today.
Okay.
So let's get started.
Okay, let's learn more. There is good reason why many individual users and companies value open source software and even prefer it to proprietary software. For one thing, it's free, right? I don't see anything bad with it. There's no problem with it.
Because typically you will think that in business you really need to be careful, right? And you're not going to want to buy something that might have problems and you want support. A lot of proprietary software actually has, you know, professional help from that company. Like
You're right.
And they can help you if there's a problem with that. But even some businesses will still prefer it, right? Because with time, open source software is getting better and better.
Exactly.
But yeah, the point is it's free, right?
You save a lot of money.
Yeah, so for you or for your business, free is good.
That's right.
Continuing, for another, it's much more flexible and secure. Any user with coding experience is able to examine the code for errors and, if they spot any, fix them immediately.
Okay, I guess that's one of the benefits of using these open source software, right?
Right, and you can imagine that if you are running a business that maybe you're doing something that's just not, like you have some special need.
Yes.
Right? You can use open source software or maybe have someone create something for you, or if you know how to code, you can create the software that exactly fits what you need to do in your company.
That's right.
It'll be more flexible.
So what does it mean by flexible?
So that's an adjective, which just means being able to change to suit new conditions or situations.
That's right.
Right? So an example, Mark has a flexible work schedule that lets him manage his own time.
So maybe he gets cases and he can work from home. He doesn't work, in an office from 9 to 5, right?
Right.
So it's a very flexible schedule.
How about secure?
Secure, well, that's our next vocabulary word, and that is also an adjective. And that just means where somebody or something cannot be affected or harmed by something. So for example, to protect company data, Jeff set up a secure network in the office. So if he set up a secure network, so maybe hackers will not be able to hack into your network and to steal your information on the computer, which is a very, very dangerous thing for companies, right?
Yeah, and when you're online all the time and pretty much your whole life you're working and doing stuff online, the biggest threat to your security is hackers. Right?
Exactly.
Okay. However, this is not to say that open source software doesn't have its own problems.
So they do have problems?
Right, so it's not to say that. So in other words,
they do have problems.
They do have their own problems. Open source software often lacks the kind of smooth user interfaces that proprietary software often provides.
Interface. What does that mean?
Right, so when we're talking about user interface, so when we're talking about computers, we often hear this, and it's just the way that a computer program presents information to a user or receives information from a user. And especially we're talking about the layout of the screen and the menus. How easy is it for you to use it if you're just a regular user?
So basically, is it user-friendly, right?
Right.
So if it's not user-friendly, the interface might be really complicated. You don't know how to work it within the software. That would be a problem, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's continue. This can make it difficult for some to engage with the software's content. And I think that's very important. You want it to be easy enough for everyone to understand and for everyone to be able to use it, right?
Yes, there's been so many times I go onto a website or something, right? And I'm trying to find something. I need to find the content that's hidden somewhere on this website or in the software, but I can't find it and I don't know how to do what I want to do.
That's right. And then you mentioned this word content. Right here, well, it's a noun where it basically just means the things that are contained in something. So for example, the content of this show may not be suitable for children under 13. So basically what's inside the show. Maybe the language is not appropriate, or maybe it's too hard to understand. So, but in this situation today, it means the information or other material contained on a website or other digital media.
Right, so we hear this word content quite a lot when we are talking about the internet and what we see on the internet, what's contained within the internet.
That's right.
Continuing, what's more, a lot of hardware is not automatically compatible with open source software.
Wait a second, it's not automatically compatible. What does it mean by compatible?
Right, so it just can't be used. This hardware, for example, you want to use a microphone for some type of audio editor. This might not recognize this microphone that you used.
That's
the software just doesn't see it, right?
Okay, well, let's continue. And the user may have to pay the hardware manufacturer for special drivers to run their open source programs. And that's actually even more work, right?
That could be a problem. So a lot of times people just use proprietary software. Why? Because you don't have to think too much. You just use money. But you're kind of putting everything into somebody else's hands.
That's right. Saves the hassle and saves time.
Well, speaking of time, I think it's time for a short break.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Okay.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。我们今天要继续跟着课文来了解开源软体。那许多个人使用者和公司很重视开源软体，他们偏好开源软体胜于专利软体，这是有充分理由的。一来它是免费的，二来它更有弹性，而且更安全。任何有编码经验的使用者呢，都可以去检视程式码，如果发现任何错误，就可以立刻修正了。好，单字 flexible 它是形容有弹性的、易变通的。那么 secure 是形容安全的、稳定可靠的。单字例句提到这个设立安全网络系统，这时候老师们提到 hack。H-A-C-K hack 就是指入侵，像是入侵电脑啊、科技设备等等，在后面加上 er 变成 hacker， 那就可以指电脑骇客。好，那其实开源软体并不是没有自己的问题哦。开源软体往往会缺乏专利软体常提供那种流畅的使用者界面，这让有些人觉得很难以适应它的软体内容。而且啊，许多硬体是没有办法自动跟开源软体相容的。好，单字 content 它是当名词表示内容，这时候是不可数名词，它也可以指内容物，那这时候常常用复数型。那么 content 还可以表达含量的意思。再来，文中用到 user interface 是指使用者界面。Shane 老师在讲到使用者界面时，他也提到这个萤幕画面的排版。我们来学一下 layout。L-A-Y-O-U-T layout 当名词可以指安排、布局、设计，也可以用来指版面设计、版面编排。老师们也聊到说，花钱买这个专利软体啊，可以省去时间、省去麻烦。我们学一下 hassle 这个字，就是表达麻烦，它是拼作 H-A-S-S-L-E， 是一个名词。那这边3个重点，我们进入文法时间。好，我们来看第一个重点是 There is good reason why 主词加动词，这是表达什么什么有充足的理由，是合乎情理的。那么 reason 在这边是不可数名词，去表达说正确或是充分的理由。Why 则是当关系副词，相当于 for which， 用来引导关系子句去修饰它前面的先行词 reason。举例来说 ，There is good reason why many people prefer to work from home。许多人偏好居家办公，这是有充足的理由的。好，那补充说明一下 ，reason 也可以当可数名词来指理由。如果你把它写作 There is one good reason why 主词加动词，则是用来明确的指出一个特定的理由哦。好，下一个重点是 prefer， 它表示偏好或是更喜爱。那么常用的句型有，第一种是 prefer to 加原形动词，表示宁可啊，比较喜欢做某事。举例来说 ，Vivian prefers to shop online。Vivian 她偏好线上购物。好，那第二个句型你可以用 prefer 加上名词或动名词。如果是要比较两者的话，你可以用 prefer 加上名词或动名词 to 名词加动名词去表达较喜欢什么胜过什么。例如 ，Some people prefer texting to talking in person。有些人更喜欢传讯息胜过当面讲话，你也是吗？好，第三个重点是 make it 形容词 for somebody to 加上原形动词，表示说使做某事变得怎么样。那先复习一下 ，make 受词加形容词，表示使什么变得怎么样。如果这个受词是不定词 to be， 我们就要用虚受词 it 来代替受词位置，把真正的受词 to be 移到句尾，那就形成 make it 形容词 to be 这样的句型。不定词 to be 前面还可以加上 for somebody。例如 ，The heavy rain made it impossible for us to continue the game。大雨使我们无法继续比赛。好，接回到课文中。
Nevertheless, the principles of open source software are fiercely defended by a large number of software developers and regular users. Indeed, the idea has spread beyond the world of computing into wider society. Today, there are open source projects focused on art, academic textbooks, college courses, and even space travel. It has become a way of looking at the world that values collaboration, transparency, and community above simple dollars and cents.
Welcome back, everyone. So before the break, we were talking about some of the problems we might encounter or run into when using these open source software, right?
So open source software isn't perfect.
Well, it's pretty good.
Yes.
Nothing is perfect,
It's almost
right?
not perfect. Nevertheless, the principles of open source software are fiercely defended by a large number of software developers and regular users. So it's fiercely defended.
Yes.
So if you defend something very fiercely, that just means you're really, really like
you have a strong feeling for it, and then you want to fight for what is
fierce.
right?
Right.
Okay, so nevertheless, though, what does that mean?
Right, so nevertheless, we're talking about some of the problems that open source software has. So nevertheless, right, so it just means despite something you have just mentioned. So we just mentioned there are some problems, right? But nevertheless, it's still fiercely defended by a lot of people. So our example sentence, I've had a great time on my trip. Nevertheless, I'm ready to go back to work. So although I just said I had a great time, actually, despite what I said, I still am ready to go back to work.
It's not like you don't want to go back to work anymore, right?
Sometimes that happens when I'm on vacation. I'm like, okay, this is a great vacation, but I'm ready to go home.
Really?
I'll miss home.
I never feel like that.
Okay.
Okay, but we have this next vocabulary word here, to defend, and that is a verb. Basically, to defend, it means to protect against attack or loss. For example, the army was sent to defend the border. Basically, they're going to defend and protect the border, right?
So this is by using force, though. We're not really talking about using force.
That's right. But in today's situation, it actually means to say or write something in support of somebody or something that has been criticized.
So in this case, that something is the problems that open source software might have, right? So they're defending it by maybe writing something on the internet or just speaking their mind, saying, well, actually, it's still great. It's better than proprietary software.
Exactly. Indeed, the idea has spread beyond the world of computing into wider society. Today, there are open source projects focused on art, academic textbooks, college courses, and even space travel. I didn't know that, actually.
Right.
Wow.
I just think this concept, the internet is really just kind of brought everybody together, right? And it's about cooperation.
That's
and
right.
people just using things as a community rather than just like private organizations have something and they don't want anybody else to know what's there.
That's right.
So kind of this concept is starting to spread into other things. You know what? If we just can all collaborate together and keep everything open, hey, we can build on it and we can work as a team. And
That's
we can
right.
do so much more.
Yes, and then we would make a lot of progress, right?
Right. So continuing, it has become a way of looking at the world that values collaboration, transparency, and community above simple dollars and cents. Right?
That's right.
So community here means a group of people who share the same, could be religion, race, job, or in this case, like interests,
Exactly.
right? So for example, you could say some members of the business community were upset by the new law. So it really is just this idea of community and sharing and not just worrying about how do we make more money.
That's right. We can help each other, right?
To make the world a better place.
And that's what everyone should be hoping for. But we do have a what do you think question today, though. So let me ask you and everybody out there, do you prefer open source or proprietary software? And why?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious because first of all, I don't
Save money.
I want to save money, so I prefer open source software. And I do like this idea of things just being open.
That's right, and clear.
Yeah, and the ability to kind of just change things depending on what the users find that is wrong with it, right? So it can always be adjusted, and really it can evolve better.
That's right.
How about you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I definitely prefer open source software much more than the proprietary software because number one, you can save a lot of money. Number two, it's much easier to use, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think this overall concept of just community
Yes.
being number one and just keeping everything open, I think that is just great for the world in general.
Exactly. Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you later. Bye-bye.
刚 刚刚讲到开源软体有一些问题，但尽管如此，开源软体的原则还是受到许多软体开发人员还有一般使用者的大力捍卫。这个概念已经传播到电脑领域之外了。那么如今有专注在艺术学术甚至是太空旅行的开源软体计划。这种概念呢，就是重视合作、透明还有群体，胜过于单纯的金钱。好，那最后来看单字 nevertheless， 它是副词，表示然而、不过或是尽管如此。那么 defend 当动词，它表示捍卫，为什么来辩护，还有防卫的意思。还有 community 本来可以指社区，在这边呢，它是指可能有相同兴趣或背景的团体社群。好，那么补充单字 collaboration， 它是表达合作、协作。它的动词呢是 collaborate， 那就有合作的意思。另一个补充单字则是 transparency， 它就可以表达透明或是透明度。好，以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
There is good reason why many individual users and companies value open source software and even prefer it to proprietary software. For one thing, it's free. For another, it's much more flexible and secure. Any user with coding experience is able to examine the code for errors, and if they spot any, fix them immediately. However, this is not to say that open source software doesn't have its own problems. Open source software often lacks the kind of smooth user interfaces that proprietary software often provides. This can make it difficult for some to engage with the software's content. What's more, a lot of hardware is not automatically compatible with open source software, and the user may have to pay the hardware manufacturer for special drivers to run their open source programs. Nevertheless, the principles of open source software are fiercely defended by a large number of software developers and regular users. Indeed, the idea has spread beyond the world of computing into wider society. Today, there are open source projects focused on art, academic textbooks, college courses, and even space travel. It has become a way of looking at the world that values collaboration, transparency, and community above simple dollars and cents.
Hello, I'm Matt.
And I'm Toi.
We're going to play a word drop. We each have 3 cards here that we haven't looked at yet, and on these cards are vocabulary words or phrases that we need to fit into a conversation as smoothly as we can. So, Toi, are you ready to start off our conversation?
Yeah, why not?
All right.
So, there are certain movies that I really enjoy the most. Like, I love rom-coms, I love drama, I love comedy movies, I love action movies. But certain ones I really can't handle emotionally. Some movies are just too intense, too scary, too gory. And so sometimes I feel like I'm a child when I watch those movies, and I feel like that content is not suitable for me and definitely not suitable for children.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's some movies, one kind of movie that I quite like is like those kind of heist movies. So the kind of movies like the famous one, Ocean's 11, where they always, in a heist movie, they always need to, get a team together and need to try to get something. And they usually, have to make a good plan because they need to get into, a very secure place.
Into a secure place. Yes. Yeah, those heist movies have really good storylines because it's all these different types of characters that are coming in and creating this team to make whatever heist or goal happen. And so I find those movies pretty entertaining too. But like between like Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 12, like those storylines are very flexible.
Oh, yes. Heist movies can. I like. Sometimes in heist movies, you don't know if it's going to work out or not, and that makes it exciting. So sometimes they'll do all the work to try to get in somewhere, and nevertheless they fail.
They fail. Yeah, I mean, that's really true, but there's also other movies that I really like superhero movies. And those are the ones, my favorite type of superhero movies are the ones that they're trying to defend their own home or their family.
Okay, yeah. Well, superheroes, at least they have superpowers, and then there's like these superhero teams now. So when they get together and form a team, that helps to make it easy for them to beat their enemy.
Yeah, it definitely makes it easier for them to beat when they have more powers, more people.
Yes.